Welcome to Infinite Heart Stories, where we explore the resilience of the human spirit and the hidden power within our struggles. This is Daniel, a young man who feels the heavy weight of the world pressing down on his tired, slumped shoulders. Surrounded by stacks of rejection letters and unpaid bills, he believes that he is nothing more than a complete, hopeless failure. 2 years ago, he poured his heart and soul into a handmade craft business, believing it was his path to success. But the customers never came, the debts piled up high, and he was forced to close the doors on his dream. He tried again with a food delivery app, pitching to investors who dismissed his ideas without a second thought or glance. Every attempt has ended in disaster, leaving him feeling hollow, incapable, and convinced that he is simply not built for success. He looks in the mirror and sees only a loser, someone who chases shadows and falls flat every single time he tries. The world moves fast around him, while he remains stuck in a quicksand of self-doubt, unable to find his footing anywhere. He begins to think that perhaps he should just give up, find a safe job, and forget about his ambitious dreams. Seeking escape from his thoughts, he steps into a local coffee shop, looking for a quiet corner to hide away in. He tries to write a new plan, but frustration takes over, and he aggressively scratches out the words on the page. A sophisticated older man named Robert notices Daniel's distress and approaches his table with a warm, knowing smile on his face. Robert asks if he can join him, and although Daniel wants to be alone, he reluctantly nods and clears some space. Robert glances at the messy notebook and asks Daniel what is troubling him so deeply on this beautiful afternoon. Daniel can no longer hold it in and spills his story, talking about his failed projects and the constant rejections. He looks Robert in the eye and confesses that he feels like a total failure who is destined to never succeed. Robert listens patiently to every word, absorbing the young man's pain without interrupting or offering any quick, shallow solutions. Then, Robert leans in and reveals that he lost everything 7 different times before he finally found his own success. Daniel is stunned, looking at the successful man before him, unable to reconcile the image of success with such failure. Robert describes his first business, a warehouse that burned to the ground, leaving him with nothing but ash and debt. He talks about being betrayed by a partner he trusted, losing his savings, and having to start over from zero. He recalls the days of selling goods on the street, facing humiliation and rejection from people who did not understand him. Robert explains that for 7 times he failed, but on the 8th attempt, everything changed because his mindset had shifted. Daniel asks the question that burns in his mind. Why did Robert not give up after the 3rd or 4th failure? Robert chuckles and says he stopped calling them failures and started viewing them simply as data points for his experiment. He explains that failure is only a reality when you stop trying, but a lesson is when you keep moving forward. Robert draws a small circle on a napkin and tells Daniel that this represents his comfort zone, where nothing ever grows. He then marks spots outside the circle, explaining that the magic and success he seeks only exist in the unknown. Daniel stares at the simple drawing, realizing that his fear of leaving that circle has been his true prison all along. Robert tells him to think like a scientist, who does not cry when an experiment fails, but simply adjusts the variables. A scientist treats a negative result as valuable feedback, information that brings them one step closer to the correct solution. For the first time in months, Daniel feels the heavy burden lift from his chest, replaced by a spark of curiosity. Robert emphasizes that rejection is not a statement about Daniel's worth, but merely feedback on his current approach or timing. Daniel imagines his stack of rejection letters transforming into a manual of instructions on how to be better next time. Robert stands up to leave, placing his card on the table, and invites Daniel to call him for his next experiment. As Robert walks away, Daniel is left alone again. But the atmosphere around him has shifted from despair to determination. Daniel picks up his pen, turns the page to a fresh sheet, and prepares to rewrite the narrative of his life. He writes a new header at the top of the page, replacing the word failures with the empowering word lessons. Next to his failed craft shop, he writes that he learned the vital importance of researching the market before launching. Beside the food app project, he notes that he needs to target investors who actually understand and value his specific industry. He finishes his coffee, gathers his belongings, and walks out of the shop with a stride full of new purpose. Returning to his room, he throws open the curtains, letting the light banish the shadows that had held him captive. He cleans his chaotic desk, organizing the clutter, symbolizing the clearing of his mind and the readiness for fresh work. He places a sign on his wall as a daily reminder that he is constantly learning, not failing, in this journey. He begins to work on a new project, approaching it with the rigorous curiosity and detachment of a dedicated laboratory scientist. When a cold call ends in rejection, he simply smiles, notes down the feedback, and adjusts his script for the next one. He analyzes the responses he gets, looking for patterns and clues that will guide him toward a better, smarter strategy. He seeks out others to collaborate with, sharing his ideas without fear of judgment, valuing their input as critical data. Weeks turn into months, and Daniel finds himself presenting again. But this time, his voice is steady and his vision clear. The audience leans in, intrigued by his resilience and the depth of knowledge he has gained from his past experiments. He answers their tough questions with ease, using the very lessons he learned from his previous failures to prove his competence. This time, the meeting ends not with a rejection, but with a firm handshake and an opportunity to move forward. He calls Robert to share the good news, not to brag, but to report the successful result of his latest experiment. Robert congratulates him warmly, but reminds him that this success is just another step in the endless journey of learning. Walking down the same street that once felt so hostile, Daniel now sees a world full of possibilities and open doors. He looks at the people around him and wonders what hidden lessons they are carrying beneath their struggles and silent faces. He stops to help a stranger, sharing a moment of kindness, knowing that everyone is fighting their own difficult battles. Like a seed breaking through the hard soil, Daniel has used the dirt of his past to fuel his growth upwards. By changing his language from failure to learning, he transformed his entire reality and unlocked the potential within himself. Daniel sits in the park, documenting his journey, knowing that the path ahead will still have bumps and unexpected turns. He understands now that failure is merely feedback, and fear is often just a lack of data waiting to be gathered. He looks toward the horizon, no longer afraid of the unknown, but eager to see what the next experiment brings. Life is a series of experiments, and we are all scientists trying to discover the formula for our own happiness. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. Be afraid of standing still and never finding out what you are capable of. Daniel looks at you now, inviting you to view your own struggles through the lens of growth and endless possibility. Every closed door is simply guiding you to the one that is meant to open, if you keep moving forward. Success is not about never falling down, but about how quickly you can get back up and analyze the fall. Just as Robert helped him, Daniel now shares his wisdom, completing the cycle of learning and giving back to others. You are the author of your own story, and you have the power to edit, rewrite, and improve every chapter. Embrace the wind, embrace the storms, and know that they are only making your roots stronger and your spirit deeper. Take a moment to appreciate how far you have come, and trust that the journey ahead holds even greater wonders. Even in the darkest moments, a single spark of a changed mindset can ignite a fire that lights up the world. This has been another journey with Infinite Heart Stories, dedicated to helping you find the strength within your own heart. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to join our community of growers and dreamers. Thank you for watching Infinite Heart Stories. Remember to turn your failures into wisdom, and we will see you soon.